Hello, and welcome to this month's May 2021 Package ThinkBIG discussion. We have a few items on our agenda. I have the first one actually. So in our recent quad planning meeting, we were discussing what data would be most useful in understanding product usage and customer growth. And I opened this issue to discuss, and I was hoping that if anyone had any ideas that they wanted to talk about here, that we could bring it up. I could also bring up the issue and go through some of the things that I've documented there to kick off brainstorming. But Nico, you have the next comment.
Yeah, so this is like a raw comment on, I was mulling on this idea when we discussed that during the quad planning meeting. So now we have usage data and error data in two different words. It would be cool if we could pull them together in a way that we understand where the user flow stopped, right? So we could, for example, identify that user keep pushing, I don't know, I'm inventing a Maven package that is missing an important file and then we can process. And this way we could like prevent those, better documentation and increase the experience for the users. In general, I think that putting together usage data and our error data, it will be a cool thing to do.
I like that idea. We're not, well, not that I know of, we're not measuring that data right now, right? We only measure, at least we only report on the success outcomes of a given endpoint.
I'm not sure if this really applies to this idea here, because we want to understand product as usage, but one of the risks that we were identifying back then when we were doing the exercise was how sometimes we don't know how the users switch to other solutions, and sometimes we lose a bit of the feedback there. I think like in the funnel, in the usage funnel, we have retention and referral as stages. So I'm just wondering if there is a way to also understand the information, like how users are dropping off our product.
I bet yeah, that's a really good idea. So customers who were using the product every day and then suddenly they stopped. That would be really useful to have that, because then we could intervene or reach out to them. I really like that idea.
I think one other thing that I think is useful with these charts is, at least as I see it, is just sort of trying to make them as actionable as possible. In the sense that, you know, for example, with me, I looked at the error budgets and I was like, okay, how do I work out what we need to look at? Well, how do I know how to isolate what the concern is around error budgets? How do I dig into that? And so that'd be kind of my thought process. Adding the data is cool, but how do I dig into or identify something that I can actually do with it? I'm sure that's already part of the plan, but it's just sort of top of mind with error budgets, as I mentioned.
Yeah, it's a good high level call out. You know, that we need to, it should be actionable. Okay.
Just one more thing to add. When in the handbook we have a link to the package metrics, which is basically a Google spreadsheet. I'm going to link it here, and it seems that we have some tracking added, but not added to the dashboard. So would that also be part of this effort, or is just about adding the metric? Like, perhaps we have metrics already, but we are not visualizing them. So
that's a great point. If there are like yesterday in our meeting, we found that we weren't displaying data for the Gradle snippet copying. So like that's a great, if we have metrics that we're not measuring, that we are tracking, we should add those to the dashboard for sure. Some of the items that I identified on the issue in the brainstorming comment, like time spent on page, we're not able to get that information. Or like session length, we're not able to find out that level of detail. One item that I like is where'd it go? The number of projects that have pipelines but are not pushing to the registry. That could be helpful too, because that could be those could be customers that we could reach out to and notify and say like, hey, check out the package or container registry for your use case. Okay, well, I'm gonna basically, I'll add some of these comments to that issue, and then I'm going to open some issues for like the top 3 or 5 metrics from this, and we'll see if we can get those planned. Oops, that looks like it has 2 duplicate topics, the next one too. Okay, I'm gonna delete that one. All right, so the next topic that I was hoping that we could discuss, speaking of error budget, Stan, is that maybe we could just, as a team, walk through those. And I was asking João if he's here, if he would be willing to like walk us through the Grafana dashboard that he created for the container registry.
Yeah, let me share my screen. So probably for that, we have some documentation about it, but maybe it is not clear where this information comes from, because the error budget is basically just this line on our package group dashboard, and that's it. But basically behind these calculations, there are 3 different things. One is the SLA, which is the service level availability, and that's basically the percentage of time that a service is available. And then to measure the SLA, we have the SLEs, so that's the service level indicators, and we use 2 at GitLab mainly, which is apex and error rate. So the apex gives you an idea of how fast your requests are being served, and the error rate gives you an idea of how many errors your API, your service is returning, basically the percentage of errors that it is returning when serving all requests. And then, so that's SLA, SLEs, and then each SLE has SLOs, which are the service level objectives. And that's what tells us where we should be for the apex and the error rate. Basically, that defines the objectives that we should meet, that our service should meet in order for us to not spend more budget than what we have. And right now, I think all services have the same SLA, which is 99.95. That's around up to 20 minutes per month of downtime. So we can see here that we are already in negative. So we went above that because we spent 40 minutes in total on the period that I have here, which is pretty slow. Let's see the last 30 days. Yeah, so we are also in negative, minus 18 minutes. So we have spent almost 40 minutes of downtime in the aggregated package API routes. So that's basically it. That's how it is measured, taking the SLOs and the SLEs, and then finally getting to the SLA. I can paste some links for the documentation for that, but if you have any questions, yeah, feel free to throw them.
If you were going to dive into what caused the 39 minutes of downtime, or which endpoint, how would you do that from here?
Yeah, so you have, let's see, one thing that is not clear for me is with these group dashboards, they basically give you an overview, but they don't give you that much detail. So if I'm not sure where the specific metrics for the package registries are, but if it was for the registry specifically, I would go to the registry overview dashboard, and then on the registry overview dashboard, you have the aggregated APDEX and error rate, which is not loading now, probably too much data. Let me just narrow down the scope, 7 days maybe. And here you can see the day where your SLE has dropped below the tolerated threshold. And with that, you could look at each one of the API routes and the metrics for those API routes and identify which ones added too much latency or returned too many errors. And that's how you identify what causes that drop on your SLE, which in turn causes a drop on the SLA, and therefore causes us to spend the error budgets. So yeah, I'm not completely sure how to delve through that for the package registries, but there must be somewhere. So that's something to follow up on.
Yeah, just a quick introduction. I linked an issue into the agenda. And there's an issue I've asked for that. Because what I was seeing when I looked at this dashboard the last time I looked at it, which was the other day, in terms of evaluating that, what I was seeing was that the error rates were empty. Because if you have a look at, sorry, I've got these pulled up in another window, so I'm just grabbing that now. But if you have a look at the general SLAs, which is the one I just linked to in the agenda, the general SLA shows the container registry at 100%. And so like determining then, okay, well, this is specifically inside our Rails environment. How do we dig into that based on the error budget dashboard was the question I was asking. And so that's kind of where I went. And then the issue I shared shows a really extensive explanation from the team up there, which is awesome. So just something to think about there. It ends up being that we're actually seeing a bunch of those errors coming out of Puma or Puma, depending on how you pronounce it. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Because then when I said actionable before, when we were talking about our own metrics, this is what I was getting at. Like, how do I come in, or how does someone on the team come in and look at these dashboards and go, okay, what's happening? How do I help improve our error budgets? Or improve our actual AppDex or error rates. So yeah, take a look at the issue I shared, and then there's a really awesome walkthrough there on how to dig into it a bit more. So want to streamline that a bit, of course, but yeah, is that helpful?
Do we have SLOs for the package registry and the dependency proxy, or right now, do we only have them for the container registry?
Like Joam, do you want to answer that? I think you have a good answer for that.
Yeah, I think everything is grouped for the package stuff and dependency proxy. I think everything is grouped under GitLab API, which is considered like a single service. So here, if you look at it, this is all we have, all the services we have. And there is web, which includes front end. There is Git, where is Git alley, all the Git endpoints. And then you have the GitLab API, which is where I'm sure that it's where the package endpoints and the dependency proxy are. The CI runners, the container registry, and GitLab pages. So I'm pretty sure everything is grouped inside this one, which has much more spent budget than what we have. So on the package stage, we have 18 minutes, I think, but the total budget spent for the GitLab API is over 1 hour. So that when you group all of the stages, it gives this.
Should
so
we
you
have
go from this to this? Oops. If it loses, but yeah, you go from this GitLab API here to this, which is just for the package stage. And then from this, you go to the individual API routes to identify the problem.
I see.
Did someone else have a question in there? I thought I heard someone else talking.
I was going to ask if we should have an SLO for the package registry, or if it should be grouped under just the regular GitLab API.
I think the GitLab API is measure it as a single service, right? For at least for users, when they interact with the GitLab API, it's the GitLab API, regardless of the endpoint that they use. So it's the same thing for them. It's a single thing. So maybe that's why they decided to go with that approach, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think my recommendation here would be to look at we have this 99.95 generalized SLO, service level objective. I think we could start with that and evaluate whether that's actually satisfactory, depending on our customer needs. As I think we all know, we have some enterprise customers operating in the cloud. And so from that perspective, this relates to GitLab.com. And so we should maybe think about how, what an SLO would be for those customers if they're satisfied with that. I think there is a process documented somewhere on how we should determine those, but that might be worth a discussion.
A question, we go in error budget even when a request takes too long, right?
Yeah, so there are two main things that will influence that: the response latency, and the response status. So if it is an error, it will count for the error rate SLO. SLI. If it is a response latency, it will count for the apex. So if a request takes a long time, more than what we define as satisfiable, then it will be discounted on the error budget.
So since we access the API of the container registry through the Rails API, and we get a lot of timeout on those, especially on some container repository, those results are going to be, I'm saying polluted because there is not anything that we can do right now on the Rails side about it by those. And I think this is to be considered because there may not be many action items there.
What, Nico, sorry, I didn't capture all of that in the notes. I apologize. You were saying that because we see timeouts in other parts of the main application that aren't directly in our code area, then that would impact our...
No. So in our area, so whenever Rails talk with the container registry, we have a slow communication there, and we know why, right? And we get slow response and timeouts there, but we don't have action point on those. I mean, we are already doing what we need to do, and it's gonna take longer. So I'm just saying that we need to take that in consideration.
And for the container registry right now, Joan, our SLI and SLO is based on the manifest reads, right? Not uploads. We just opened an issue for that yesterday.
Yeah, we had a single SLE for the whole API, so all operations were under a single SLE. And like a month ago or so, we started working on splitting those per endpoint so that each endpoint has a specific SLE. Because before we had one that was like the tolerable threshold is requests served under 10 seconds. But we have some endpoints that should be served below 1 second, for example. But some others are okay if they take 5 or 10 seconds because users are uploading a large amount of data. So what we're doing now is splitting that unique SLE into several SLEs that are fine-tuned for each one of the endpoints. And we started with the manifest one. So if you look here, we have a set of SLEs. And you have the service level indicator, which is basically the aggregation that I was talking about. So this contains everything. And now we have a new one here, which is the server route manifest reads SLE. which is a specific SLE that we defined for the manifest route when doing reads. So the get and add method, and we have a separate one for writes as well. So we not only separate by route, we also separate by operation. So reading a manifest should end more quickly than uploading a manifest. So the SLE should reflect that. We shouldn't have the same SLE for two operations that are expected to perform differently.
Would the separations of SLEs happen in GitLab API? Because right now is as a whole, but is it planned to have such separation?
Yeah, we will have in the GitLab API, I'm not sure, but we can do this without any code changes because this is all on the runbooks project and that only looks at Prometheus. So on that end, we can aggregate metrics as we want without any code changes. So it should be relatively straightforward if we want to add specific SLEs for the package endpoints, if we don't already have them, but I don't see them anywhere.
Should this make its way into our testing too? I know we have some issues to test like API performance. Should we be testing the satisfied and tolerated thresholds as part of that?
Yeah, I was thinking of probably integrating what we are measuring in production for our performance tests. So we have as realistic feedback as possible when we are doing code changes before it hits production, but it's still really in the early stages in terms of performance tests development. I hope we could get this more developed during this, and by the end of the quarter, we would have something decent.
Cool. Yeah, it makes sense. We have a long roadmap, so it's okay. Any other questions or comments on error budgets or AppDex or Grafana? No? Thanks, Sean, for walking us through that. That was really helpful. Steve, you have the next item.
Yeah, so there's been a few points of discussion and various issues that have come up around tokens and permissions and how there's just not necessarily enough granularity or the type of granularity that certain users want around the package registry. So there's been a few ideas that have been floated around. I opened an issue to discuss the idea of creating a new token specific to the package registry that would allow for much more customizable permissions. And the idea there being that right now, all of the existing tokens, the permissions are sort of tied to the project. So if you have access to read the project, you have access to read the packages and vice versa, which some users have voiced that they don't want that kind of tie together. And then there's also issues with the way that CI job tokens and deploy tokens kind of work and the way that they can view packages. So I've kind of opened that issue to discuss the idea of a unique package token. And then I wasn't aware until more recently that there is an epic for updating the existing tokens, I believe, to follow a slightly different pattern and make use of JWTs sort of in a similar way to what the container registry does, where we grant permissions on different resources. So that's just like another idea to kind of consider and discuss. So I thought it might be a good discussion topic here if anyone has any thoughts.
I would love to jump in here. I know from the UX perspective, especially in the leadership side of things, when managing package registries and stuff like that, permissions that are unique to the registry compared to other types of access is different. So I can see there's a lot of value. We're going to be talking to some users here shortly, especially on that higher level, in terms of how they want to manage their registries and access to the registry inside of their organizations. So I can't actually answer the question, which is not very fun right now, but from a technical standpoint, I would love to know what you would need to learn from users to differentiate the advantage or disadvantage one way or the other. What kind of questions would you want to ask the CTO of some large company if they need something that would require us to create specific tokens, or if we just need to adjust the tokens we have? So I would love to find out more information from all of you on that subject as well, since we're here and about to talk to users.
The issue with a lot of folks don't like using the personal access tokens because they think that's an anti-pattern. When you're considering a large organization, they don't want to use their personal access tokens, and we don't allow deploy token access to the GitLab API, or we'd like to avoid doing that. And we've agreed to avoid doing that. So that's one of the frustrations. And then right now, if you are using a personal access token, you have to give access to the API to give access to publish and read packages. And that's really troublesome for people as well. So I think that's maybe the idea of item 2 that Steve recommended, is that part of that epic is they would create a new scope for the personal access token, which would be read package registry, write package registry. Or we can create a new token that just does that. I think that those are 2 good ideas. Talking to customers, I feel like simplification and authentication is one of the big values of why we want people to consolidate. Stop managing tokens for Artifactory and for GitLab, just manage them in one place. That would be really useful. I don't think that answered your question, Ian, but I just wanted to give some extra context.
I think one question for users would be, when working with the package registry, do you want your token to have access to anything else? Like, is it common that you want a token that has access to multiple parts of the application, or with package, is that sort of unique and we want it fully isolated or not? And I guess along with that is, what types of granularity do users want? Do you just want to be able to pick and choose what projects a certain token has access to, what specific packages within a given project they have access to, what groups they have access to? Things like that would be useful to know.
When you say access to, does that then split additionally to push and pull?
Yes.
Or read and write permissions after that as well?
Right.
So the question would be, could they possibly look for the granularity of this specific token can push only Maven packages to the registry? But is that kind of the example of the detailed version? Okay.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right. But yeah, and then throwing in the package type is another question, I suppose, that would complicate things.
Do you expect, or would you hypothesize that the container registry and the package registry is the only split that we'll see there? Like managing image tags is a special thing versus managing packages, or do you think it might break down? Or do you want me to find out?
I want you to find out.
I had a feeling as soon as I started talking, that was the answer, but perfect. Since we're on the topic, are there any other questions that you on that subject that you want to have answers to? Or is it just better understanding of the granularity in general?
I have a question. Would the granularity that you're talking about be able to be replicated or replaced with virtual registries and token connected to the virtual registries?
I will admit that a lot of the conversations that I had with users about the dependency proxy and the virtual registry idea is that they could manage the permission of that and then distribute that as they needed. So that could be another place we handle that, but I'm not sure if tokens are the way to do that or if there's a new way to handle that. Not my area of expertise.
When you say that they, we'll talk about the virtual registry and say that that's interesting for being able to manage the tokens. Do you mean like that they would have a token to access a specific virtual registry, and that's all it's allowed to do, kind of. Okay.
I know that also popped up a lot for the virtual registries in the conversation of distributed organizations. So we were talking to some clients that were, or customers that were researching artificial intelligence, which is really cool. And somebody on the other side of the world in that team is working on something and they need access to packages in one format versus an organization in Europe who's totally separate, would still need to have access, but could need different permissions. So that abstracted model might also come into play with the virtual registries and how they get distributed and such.
I have two questions about this. Yeah, one of them is really close to what Nico said. Is there an overlap with virtual registries where you could allow users to pull packages from projects where they don't have access to? And the other thing is, can we have an empty project where the project with the code source has a pipeline that will push the package to that project, and then you manage permissions on both projects in a different way? Could that work?
I'm not sure how well it specifically works, but I do know a lot of customers or users that I've been talking to tend to use a project with specific settings to just house their registry instead of trying to use tokens or anything like that. So I know that that is a thing that happens.
Is that, I guess a question for those users might be, are they doing that specifically because we don't have virtual registries yet? Is that their sort of workaround of that system?
I'm not sure if it's specifically the virtual registry aspect, but from what I've heard from users as they talk about it is they want a place for packages to share across the organization. And so putting it in its own project somewhere that people can access it is the most straightforward solution that we have right now. The virtual registry would give us an endpoint to bunch all of those individual projects together and create the access point. But I feel like that one place to go is really what those large organizations are looking for. I don't know if Tim has heard something different to that, but that's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, that's right, I would say.
You have a question, Tim?
Oh, we were talking about what questions we would want to know. One thing I've heard from admin is that they have a need to like regularly rotate tokens on behalf of users. So I think just understanding like, if we do create a new package token, are there requirements around that we need to consider as well?
Yeah, I think this is an area of exploration, taking a look at what's required. Definitely considerations when we start talking about security concerns and you know, that class of errors I always forget the name for, but the supply chain type things where we need to invalidate a bunch of stuff. That doesn't answer the question, but in my head, it's all grouped into the how do we make sure that the package registries are secure and how we support our customers in making sure their own processes are secure. So I definitely think that we should be at least have a line item and maybe chat with customers and see how they'd like that to work, because there's a lot of overhead that comes in with it as well. If you want to be able to turn it off and on. For if I'm a customer managing my own space, maybe I don't want it, maybe it's fine. Anyway.
Okay, we have one more topic on there, Ian, if you want to kick it off.
Yes. Speaking of research and talking to people, we are exploring with our higher level users what their needs are, specifically when it comes to the package registry. We've done a good job at the project level with small groups, and the group level is pretty smooth, but we want to know those DevOps engineers, the platform level engineers, system admins at highest level, what do they need and expect from the package registry? And while we were doing that initial thinking, I kind of had the realization that packages could be in a unique position where, because we either consume or distribute dependencies throughout the DevOps lifecycle, if we had the opportunity to kind of make that platform play in terms of we are a hub for the package itself, and then package kind of can be seen throughout the entire workflow. And what you all thought of that idea of being able to kind of plug ourselves into the rest of the platform instead of kind of right now we're a little bit of an isolated bubble. If you could think of opportunities that we should explore with users, areas of the products you think would be useful, I would love to get your thoughts as technical experts on the subject.
Okay, I think I'll comment on voice what I wrote. Should we consider hooking up the registries in the auto DevOps feature, in the meaning that if we detect that there is something that can be published in the repo, we straight up publish in our package registry and say, hey, your pipeline run is your package.
Yeah, I've been working with Maria on the configure team, who I think is the organization in charge of auto DevOps, and they're making some changes, which are really exciting. One of the first ones that I want to explore is, should we, in the auto DevOps, turn it on switch, just include the package registry and publishing to it as a default, and what that looks like. So that is a great area to look at. David, did you want to voice your comment?
Yeah, I was looking for the issue. So I've been exploring the idea of having CI pipelines for packages. I don't have any results yet, but I do have a intermediary result, I guess. I created a pipeline out of a package, and it was accepted by the GitLab instance. And so it's visible on the pipelines page of the project. And so, yeah, the idea is that when you push a package, you have a pipeline that is started. And if this pipeline fails, the package will not be available within the package registry. And so then on the pipeline, you can have different types of jobs. And I've been exploring different things. Like one of them is opening the package and making sure that the license is the one we want. And we could also integrate Package Hunter, but I'm not there yet. I'm a step before that, but I will come with something interesting to show you when I have more results.
Will those pipelines and Java replace the workers that you use now to do some of those operations?
You mean workers that extract things? Yeah, they could. The only thing is that those workers are mandatory, meaning that if you don't run them, the package will not be available. And so the jobs on the pipeline are more things that you can add to check the validity of a package, if everything is in order. And yeah, well, I don't think it's a good idea to have the extraction job as a CI job, because if you don't include it in the pipeline, well, your packages will never be available. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes. The idea why I was saying that is because it will provide insight to the user what is happening when. So if we could have mandatory jobs, right? And they see, oh, it failed, the extraction worker failed because I sent a password protected zip file, I don't know, whatever. And we will get a lot of feature out of for free, basically, because they're already there.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Nico on that. It might, if the extraction job fails, even if it was, I see what you're saying, because it won't necessarily run, but if the pipeline's running and you can see the visibility of where it failed out in all of these steps in the pipeline view, that was the kind of get everything for free idea, I think, right? It's the, you know, you can see exactly what's happening every step of the way. And then if it fails extraction for whatever reason, even if that was some type of handoff to a background process and a response, which I'm not saying we want to do, by the way, but yeah, I can see the value in that, the visibility, the visual of that kind of going, oh, my package executed, here's a thing. Where did it get to? Oh, the license failed, let me go check that, instead of getting a, I don't know what other status we're sending people at the moment. And you and I talked about this before, David, and I think it's a really cool idea. I really like the integration idea. I like the idea of being able to plug in existing pipeline jobs from GitLab on package push, or, you know, on that type of event. And then, you know, we could run scanning tools, integrate it with whatever we wanted to. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, actually, when we discussed this, your face lighten up, like it sparkled, and I think it's a really simple idea that users can get. It's not something hard to explain. It's like the same thing that we have CI pipelines for source code. Well, now we have CI pipelines for package, and this opens up a lot of possibilities.
Not only what I'll stop going on about because I know there are other questions, but not only that, but it's also like somewhat extensible. You could manage the pipeline in a way that we can't right now. And that just, it means that it presents users and you know, everyone an opportunity to extend those pipelines to do things we haven't even thought about. Which I think is really awesome. That's why I was so excited about the idea. It was like so many wins here potentially, also potential drama, but you know, that's always the case with new features, right?
What? Sorry, David, go on.
Yeah, there's also this idea of cascading pipelines that could be useful. Like you push code to master, then you have a CI pipeline building a package, pushing that package to the package registry. And this one will kick another pipeline that will check the package. And then if everything is all right, the package will be available. So you are cascading everything and everything is automated, kind of.
Do you see any benefit of having a pipeline dedicated to package over a cascading effect?
I'm not sure I understand the question. The second pipeline is one that is on the package.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying now. Okay.
So the first one is a standard git push or a merge request that you merge on master. This change kicks a first pipeline that will build the package and deploy it to the package registry. And this second push will kick the CI pipeline for the package.
Gotcha.
Nico, you wanted to say something previously?
Yeah, just it came to mind if we have, this doesn't matter for .com, but if we have self-managed customer that use packages, but they don't have runners running, for example, they don't have pipeline. I don't think this is a possible configuration, but maybe it's an edge case that needs to be taken into account.
So the runner will need to be changed because it will need to pull a package from the pipeline and not a Git commit. So that's something I'm working through. But yeah, if they have, I mean, the runner should support pipelines for code and pipelines for packages. So that's not a simple change. It's not a trivial one.
Do you think it would be worth it to have some folks from the runner team talk through this idea with us?
Yeah, my idea is exploring quickly what is possible or not. And depending on the results, we will need to discuss with the runner team, but also with the team behind pipelines. Because basically for a pipeline, you need a reference to something. So when you push code, it's the commit SHA on Git. But when you push a package, we don't have anything. So I had to create, it's like a push event. So that could even help us to build an historical view of pushes. And from this object, I created a dummy checksum. And basically, I made the pipeline believe that this is a Git commit, but it's actually a package push. So I'm not sure if that's the best way to handle that. And yeah, basically we need changes on the pipelines and changes on the runner. So we will need to discuss with both teams.
I know that the pipeline authoring group also wants to have a conversation with us in terms of how to author pipelines and interact with the package registry. What are your all thoughts on maybe for our next big Think Big session, inviting some of the people from Runner and pipeline authoring to kind of walk through the idea? David, you could raise your concerns around the commit SHA, and we can have that big discussion as a team and then figure out how to break it down. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it could be helpful. I want to have the result that everything works with some simplifications, and then we can work from there. But having something that works gives you more visibility on what is possible.
I'm going to schedule an investigation for this issue for next milestone. That might give us some more time and space to think about it. And then we could see if when we're ready to bring people into the conversation, we can. Okay. I think we are at time. Any other questions or comments before we break? No, I'm going to stop this recording. Thank you for everyone watching at home.